It's time to live life through the eyes of fit people so that you too can live a fit life yourself. This is Fit Because. I'm one of your hosts, Jennifer Zerling, but you can call me Jay-Z. I'm a fitness and age management expert, author, speaker, as well as an international health advocate.
And I'm your other host, George Veter. I'm an entrepreneur, cattle rancher, fitness enthusiast, and a 6-time rodeo champion who has a huge amount of knowledge to share with you in the area of self-improvement.
Oh, he does. Get ready to learn how to bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing what it takes to become physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially fit.
You ready, Jay-Z?
Oh, I'm ready, George.
Let's dive in.
And we are back. I cannot believe it's already episode number 9.
That's cool.
And this is going to be great, George. Jay-Z and George Veter here. We got the power of decision. What a great subject to tackle this is. And I just called you a week and a half ago because I was on the urge of buying a townhouse and I wasn't sure what to do. I couldn't make that decision. There was something itching in me that just needed to call you as someone I heavily admire and trust. And you said I support whatever decision you make. So you didn't tell me what to do.
No.
I had to go back with myself and I had to decide that it was not the right property for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy in retrospect. And I just can't wait to talk to our audience about the process of coming to these decisions that will either make or break your future, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So take it away, George.
The power of decision is just a very intense and it is an indispensable topic to get your mind around. And it's important to understand the process of making decisions and then getting the habit of making decisions in a certain way to propel you towards whatever you're trying to be or to have or to become. So, in fact, the book Think and Grow Rich, which I reference all the time, which I think is necessary reading for anybody here that's aspiring to a greater, more fulfilling life, was published in 1937. Napoleon Hill is the author. He was a West Virginia journalist who interviewed Andrew Carnegie, who in his day, around the turn of the century, was the wealthiest man in the world. He and John Rockefeller kept trading places for the wealthiest man in the world. He was retired when he gave this journalist, Napoleon Hill, the assignment to write this book, Think and Grow Rich, which would be a study of the most successful people of that era, the early part of that century, almost 150 years ago now. And so he spent 25 years studying the successful people of his day. Andrew Carnegie was the primary contributor, but Henry Ford was a big contributor that he interviewed multiple times. Henry Firestone from the Big Tire King. Thomas Edison, the greatest inventor ever, was alive during that period of time and continuing to crank out a lot of great patents and work and new products. And so those men had extensive interviews with this journalist with the stamp of Andrew Carnegie's introductions and approval. And after 25 years of these studies, he wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, about what they had in common to be successful, to rise above the average and help shape this country during this industrial revolution. So it's phenomenal reading. So that's a big promo, right?
Yes. And of course, I'm sure one of the commonalities was they were...
Chapter 8. So there's 13 principles that they all lived to make them what they were in some way, shape, or form. And chapter 8 is about the power of making decisions. They had a process that they shared in common in the way that they made decisions and they viewed decisions that made them different from the masses. So that's what we're going to discuss today. But I would recommend to our listening audience to buy that book if you don't already have it. And if you do have it, reread chapter 8 after we go through today's discussion to kind of drill down and get clear in your mind why it's important and analyze we all need to have a certain amount of introspection, right? What kind of decisions have we been making? Why did we make those decisions? Were they good and empowering, or were they not so empowering? And did they cause us to be less than we could be, or have they stretched us? And we'll delve into that today. And so hopefully we all come empowered away from this discussion.
Yes. And the cool thing is we always have the choice to make a decision. So
Yeah,
even if that
exactly.
decision is not the best decision, you can always turn things around by moving in a different direction.
We're
So
always one decision away from a new life.
that's right.
We have to believe that.
Yeah.
That's we have this little space where we make decisions. We have whatever the stimulus is, and then we have our impulse, and then we have a choice in between whatever the stimulus was and the impulse to do or don't do, or to do in a certain way. And learning the process of handling those moments in an empowering way, different than people that are less successful than we want to be,
Uh-huh.
will be a separator for us. We're going to really pick that
Yeah.
apart today.
And it's really challenging for a lot of people because being a coach, I know a lot of people who have struggled with lack of power growing up,
Yeah,
where parents have, made them feel like they're inadequate in making decisions for themselves. And even as
sure.
adults, they question, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that's the best for your family? Are you sure that's good for your career? So let's start there. How do we get those people who are very thirsty to be able to make decisions? How do we get them to really trust in themselves to make the right decisions?
Okay, first of all, I think innately, all of us, as just part of a human family, we have a unique ability to make decisions and alter our course in life. And we have to believe that we can change our life through decisions we make. Okay,
Hmm.
so we have to start with that fundamental faith. Otherwise, we're just not going to be making decisions. If we don't make decisions, we've made a decision to let other people influence us in whatever
Hmm.
direction they want to take us, right?
Hmm.
So not making a decision is a decision.
I love that.
And there's a consequence to that, just like a consequence to making an overt, actual, definite decision.
Right.
So, in fact, Napoleon Hill, he passed away in 1970. And after he passed away, there was created a Napoleon Hill Foundation, and his relatives, as well as other people that were interested in his life, that sit on the board of this foundation, they dug up a lot of his writings that he never published,
Mm.
and he had a book that he was gonna publish if he'd have lived long enough,
Yeah.
called Outwitting the Devil, and that's another really cool read. But in the book, he talks about the fictional character being the devil, how his greatest tool to steal people's happiness and steal their potential is to get them not to make decisions or to procrastinate, right? Because that's the
Right.
other side of being a powerful decision maker, is being a procrastinator,
Right.
right? And just not making a decision.
Hmm.
And so
But it is making a decision. It's deciding not to make a decision.
exactly, but it's a softer way
Yeah.
to do something that's negative, right? So in other words, in his premise of this particular writing, I won't go too far into it, just kind of outline it for you.
Hmm.
His premise is that people that are just in general good people, you can't motivate them to do something awful. I can't convince you to murder somebody or to do
No.
something horrible, right?
Too much love in my heart.
Yeah, it's not in your nature, right?
Right.
So the devil realizes in this, and again, I'm not preaching, I'm just saying the premise to this fictional book, but that he's teaching this principle with. But the devil can't get great people to do bad things, but he can get them to put things off and to
Mm.
drift,
Right.
right? And to procrastinate and not make decisions. And then time runs out
And then it's too late.
and they die with all their good stuff inside of them.
Ooh.
Never got out.
Now, do you feel like that exists today?
Absolutely.
So
I
people
know it
are
does.
actually causing other people to not make decisions so that they get ahead.
I think so. I don't know if it's overtly that way, but subconsciously, probably.
Huh.
Because we've talked about this principle before, that the people that you hang out with, in
Hmm.
fact, there's a common philosophy that several different motivational, speakers have brought up, that we will become an average in the next 5 years of the people that we hang out with and the things that we read and the things that we listen to, right?
Hmm.
So if you're around negative people, and even if you're a positive person by nature, and if you're reading stuff that's negative by nature, eventually that influences you. In fact, Napoleon Hill said that criminals, when interviewed in prison, when they talk about coming into contact with crime, it doesn't go from 0 to 60 for them. It's gradual. In fact, with most criminals that he interviewed, because he did that, he went in his day to the penitentiary and interviewed these people to find out what happened in their lives
Mm.
to make them make those wrong turns. And he said they all had a similar story. When they first came in contact with crime, they abhorred it. And if they stayed in contact with crime long enough, they learned to tolerate it. And if they
Mm,
stayed in contact with crime longer than that, they eventually embraced it and became influenced by it.
mm.
That's the way it goes, like cooking the frog, right? You've heard that. Everybody's heard that analogy probably. The only way that you can cook a frog with his permission is not to put him in hot water. He'll jump right out. But to put him in water and then slowly, slowly, slowly turn the temperature up, and all of a sudden he's cooked. He didn't realize he was getting cooked,
That's
right?
so sad.
But that happens with people. Okay,
Yes.
so we don't choose to be negative. We don't choose to be disempowered. We don't choose to live average and ordinary lives, right?
Mhm.
We choose, we all grow up with dreams and goals and ambitions, right? Little kids, we're born with that. We're born
Mhm.
alive with possibility, and everything's curious and fantastic and wonderful,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
we see ourselves being wonderful things. But then over time, that feeling or that juice in our life gets stolen
From other people. People dim that fire,
from
that
people
desire.
trying to, right, tamp that out of us,
Mhm.
right? Get us to conform, and people that are uncomfortable with us doing something big because in by contrast that might make them feel less of, right?
Mm.
So they would on some level rather that you not do something great in front of them and make them feel like,
Disempowered.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have to make our own decisions. We can't let other people make decisions for us. It's never going to be the ultimate growth mode for us if we are not completely in control of the decisions that need to be made in our life. And so that's, I mean, I'll let you give your 2 cents,
Yeah.
Jay-Z, but then we want to kind of go into the process of making decisions,
Right.
right?
So let's start,
Okay.
with what I mentioned before. Here's a person that their family just, loving family, even if they're a great family, just never made them feel like they have the toolbox to make the right decisions. Where can they start? I know you mentioned faith, and that is one of our podcasts. So if you haven't heard the faith episode, definitely listen to that because
Yeah.
faith to both of us is very important.
Yeah.
But aside from having faith, like what is that very first step for somebody to feel empowered to make a decision?
You asked me that question on each podcast because it goes back to the same principle, Kate. Everybody has a responsibility to decide what they want, and we can't tell them that, right?
Hmm.
So
But
that's what,
sometimes they say, I don't know.
but they do know. Everybody can just close their eyes and say, what would it feel like to have a better life? Because everybody has lack. Everybody knows what the next step is for them. And it's
Uh-huh.
going to be different from person to person, obviously, right? Thank goodness we don't all want to be robots. We all want this diverse world to have the flavor of lots of different ideas and orientations and
Hmm.
people moving in different directions. It's all wonderful
Hmm.
because it's so diverse, right? We're born with these things. If we're born with dreams, desires, ambitions, which we as little kids we have those
Hmm.
innately, they're going to look different, but everybody has one. Wherever we are, there's a better life that we can envision, right? Whether that
Yes.
means financially, emotionally, relationally, a lot of different ways, spiritually, certainly. There's a better life that we can live that would make us, in our own eyes, feel better about ourselves, right? So you got to
Hmm.
do the work. Now, maybe we haven't taken the time to put that on paper, what exactly
So
that
what
is.
is the work?
So,
Let's dive into
so
that.
that is the work. If you haven't done that yet, if you don't know, if you're kind of meandering through your life and you're feeling unfulfilled,
Uh-huh.
okay, spend some time. Maybe you need to get off in nature, right, where it's quiet and you can listen to yourself better or what comes to yourself better. And then you think about what your ideal life would like if there were no limits, if you couldn't fail, right? Get that out of your mind, right? Not
Hmm.
the buts. And then think about what would that life be like for me
Hmm.
or for you? What would it feel like to live in a life where I'm totally empowered and I get everything that I want? What does that feel like and what does it look like specifically? Spend some time, do a few pages in your journal, get that down. Okay, once you have that down,
Yeah.
and that's going to evolve, it should evolve, right?
Hmm.
I mean, 5 years from now, I should see something bigger for my life than I see now as
Oh, and
I've
you
lived and
will.
experienced. Yeah, but I mean, that's
Everyone
going to
should.
evolve. But right now, I know what I want. We
Hmm.
talked about, you asked me what my goals were, between now and the end of the year, and I gave you
Yes.
some ideas. I know exactly what I want my life to be look like in the short and the midterm. My
Hmm.
long term, I do, but that keeps shifting as I.
Right. And you know exactly what you need to do to get there. But now let's take your example of going into the wilds
Yeah,
or into wherever they
spending
should
alone time,
go
right?
in
Quiet time,
nature,
right? Hmm.
quiet time. It's okay if they walk away from that first experience with absolutely nothing to write down.
Yeah, but they won't. They won't, Jay-Z, because we all have brains that have motion, right? And we all we
Yeah.
have little pictures in our minds of things that we've seen, either in our imagination or in real life, that we thought, man, would that be awesome to have or be or do that?
Okay.
All of us have those.
So
We
you're
have those.
saying bring the
So
fairy tale back.
I'm saying that you are not going to go back and spend a couple hours in nature and not think of anything that you'd like to do or be or have. That's not going to
You and
happen.
I, maybe not, but what I'm saying is I mean, don't forget I coach thousands of people. So
Right.
I
And they come to
hear
you because they want to change.
that's correct.
Everybody wants to change.
That's correct. And a lot of people have great success, but there's those percentage of people that are just, it's like there's a big, thick wall in front of them, and there's just that lack of belief. So, how do they break that wall down? Let's just say that person is in nature.
I'm getting too repetitive here. That's what they need to do. Everybody can
So sit there and don't move until you make it happen. Okay.
or something. You can put something down that is going to feel better than where you're living right now.
Okay.
That's where we start, okay? And then you make decisions, okay? All great movements in this world are a result of decisions that have been made that have not been popular at the time, by the way, right?
Of course.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have moved the world in a different direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Look at the internet.
Well, sure. But I mean, we can think of anybody in history that we all learn about in school, but think of Columbus. You know, he had a specific
Sure.
decision he made and he could not be detoured, right? There were lots of
Right.
failures in his way because he had decided he's going to find this new world that he believed in that no one else believed in, right?
Right.
And I mentioned to you, or I read a little bit to you in this book, Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill talks about one of our greatest examples that we have in common as Americans here. I know not everybody is in America that will listen to this, but in America, we're a relatively new country based on a premise of freedom, right? A greater amount of freedom than was available to the colonists with Mother England there, right? So you had the Declaration of Independence signed by 56 men, and they knew that when they signed that document, they were committing treason. So they knew they were going to die or they were going to be free, right? Decisions sometimes or all the time have some type of cause and effect, to them. And great decisions that are going to be real life altering, there is going to be something required of us in making those decisions if they're real decisions, right? But that's what actually makes things happen in our life. I'm going to quote to you that little bit that I did.
Yes.
Because I committed this to memory because it really moved me when I read it in Think and Grow Rich. But he said the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence staked their lives on the decision to affix their signatures to that document. Any man and woman who decides to make life pay the price they ask does not stake their life on that decision, but they do stake their economic freedom, right? Financial independence, desirable business positions, and affairs in life are not within reach of the person who neglects, refuses to expect, demand, and plan these things. When a person desires whatever it is they want in the same spirit that Samuel Adams desired freedom for the colonies, they are sure to be successful. So it's an all-in type of a thing. Now, as far as process in making decisions, and then we'll just kind of go where this discussion leads us, Napoleon Hill also had a lot of insight. In studying these 500 men, their habits were this. They would collect the information. They'd make sure they're well informed when they make decisions, just like you were with your house purchase, right? You're looking at what your options are and you're considering everything. But once you have everything in front of you to make your decision, you make your decision quickly. Time does not improve the efficiency of the decision that's going to be made or the appropriateness.
Right.
Well, we have that in us to make decisions. All of us can make decisions. So once we have the facts in front of us, successful people make decisions quickly, and then they change them seldom, if ever.
Right.
Okay.
And when you say write it down, like it could be as simple as a pros and cons list.
Sure.
What are the pros and cons?
That's part of your research, right? That's part of weighing the options, right? And everybody's heard of the famous probably Franklin T. You just draw a T, right, with a long tail.
Yeah.
And you put, here's all the pros, here's all the cons.
that's it.
You just weigh it out.
Yeah. And write down what you know.
You see you see it on paper and you make a decision based on what you want to do in your life. And then you just make the decision and move, right?
Yeah.
Now, unsuccessful people have the opposite pattern in common. Once the decision or once the options are in front of them, they still procrastinate making a decision,
Hmm.
and it takes them forever. And then when they do make a decision, they oftentimes change it quickly.
Right.
So it's the opposite pattern of successful
Because
people.
they doubt themselves.
They doubt themselves,
Hmm.
and they aren't sure, and they don't move right into their decisions, right?
Right. And sometimes it's too late.
You know, the great motivator we've all heard of, Tony Robbins, he says,
Hmm.
once you make a decision or set a goal, you never leave the sight of that goal or decision without taking some type of action. You
Hmm.
don't just say it. You do something right now. You make the phone call. You write something down you're doing tomorrow that you can't do today, or whatever.
Hmm.
You do something. You do something to move into it, right?
Right.
So you need speed in response to the decision. That's also very important.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool that Ernst Poppel, he's a brain researcher. He was saying that we make 20,000 decisions a day.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear about that?
I didn't hear about that. That's a lot of decisions.
That's a lot of decisions. I mean, the littlest of decisions, but
Yeah.
it all adds up. You know, and I want to use my example again, because with that townhouse that I didn't end up getting, there wasn't a lot of facts that I had at my fingertips. I had to do a lot of research. So there were
Yeah.
things that were outside of what I knew that I had to look at. So the reason why I didn't go with it is because there was no inside washer dryer, which to me, that's very important.
Right.
And I was told there was. So even though I saw the property and even though there wasn't physically a hookup, they were saying, yes, you can get a hookup. And I'm like, well, who do I need to speak with? So it's also investigating all the appropriate questions and resources to arrive at a decision that makes the most sense for you. But outside of that, of course, when I called you that night, I was like, man, there's going to be like $40,000 worth of work on top of the down payment. I mean, do I want to move into this place that's not ready to move into? It might be 2 months from now. Who knows? And you're like, I support any decision you make. And, you know, as soon as I got my information about the washer dryer, that's when I'm like, that's a game changer. The answer is no. So bring us through that journey. Because I mean, I'm very
Sure.
clear about how to make decisions. Obviously, sometimes the
Sure.
decisions take more than a day because it's a big
Right.
purchase. But what does that journey look like?
You know, it's interesting. For me, it's come natural. I think because I studied these things at an early age. I was in my early 20s when I
Hmm.
became just totally fascinated with these success philosophies, because I felt like, how silly is it for me to stumble through life trying to figure out how things work when I've got these people like this Napoleon Hill book I've told you, and lots of other writings and lots of other biographies
Mm.
and lots of other people that are still living, that are setting examples. There's a proven roadmap for anywhere you want to go, right? So it's so
Hmm.
crazy to try reinvent the wheel. I mean, you just go ahead and use what has been given ahead of you, right?
Mm.
It's just there. So
That's been proven.
so I started studying these things, and when
Hmm.
I was, I don't know, 22 years old, something like that, 21, 22,
Hmm.
and then it became kind of my life obsession. And then decisions have been easy for me to make, almost compulsive, but in a little bit of a controlled compulsive way. Like I think about, for example, you know, I bought, I don't know how to say that. That's probably oxymoron, right? But I, I think about like the big decisions I made. I mean, big impactful decisions, like the business that I'm in, um, choosing a business model that I'm going to pour my life and my resources into to make money with. It's not something I've agonized over. I saw it, I knew it, I did it, I poured myself into it, period.
And brought other people into it. You have a whole
Yes,
team.
yeah. Same thing is true
So,
with my rodeo career. You know, I mean, it
hmm.
wasn't, I'm going to do this a little bit and see how it works out, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be a champion. I'm going to actually really learn how to do this good. But so I made that decision, and I've never rodeoed without a decision. You know, I've talked about that to my
Yeah.
friends. There are guys that, like in any sport, they're just happy to be participating in a sport. They enjoy the sport, right?
Right.
I'm not that guy.
You play
I'm
to
not,
win.
if because that's the only way I can progress. I've got to say, okay, if I'm going to rodeo this year, here's my specific goals to accomplish: the money I need to win, the awards I want to accumulate, or the championship I want to come away with. That's what gets me up every day and gets me to train and to keep my body fit and to eat the right stuff and to think the right things and to watch the right videos and to enter and all those hours on the road to get to those rodeos, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And you've got to be driven with a specific thing in mind. At least that's the way my mind works. And once I make those decisions, I never ever back out of those decisions.
Hmm.
I bought. Tell you one other quick example of how that is in my life. When gosh, it was 2005, so I guess 12 years ago now. My father, I grew up on this cattle ranch. It was a pretty large cattle ranch, about 3,500 acres, which sounds like a ton of land, but it's mountains. So a lot of it's brushy, rocky, not usable. And my father, unfortunately, had struggled financially our whole life. He financed the ranch with debt, with a credit line, and he'd have
Mm.
bad years, and his good years didn't pay for the bad years, so debt just accumulated, and then his health broke down, and he was in a mess. So he took two big parcels, 850 acres, that were closest to Oakhurst, well, north of the ranch, or the northern position of the ranch, and he put them for sale for $1 million. And he tried to sell. We advertised in the Bay Area, and this is when real estate's jamming, right? This is early
Mm-hmm.
2000s, right? Led up to the
The
actual peak in
crash. Yeah.
2006. So developers were buying anything, and this was the time to sell, right? But because the ranch was just so brushy, no usable roads, no ponds, it was just a mess, right? Fences were all bad. So because it was like that, nobody even made him a low ball offer. He wanted to get $1 million for it, and nobody even gave him a low offer. So one day it just came to me. I'm riding around with my dad doing something on the ranch, and it just came to me. I'm in position now. I can buy it for him from him.
Yeah. And
I can pay him the $1 million and buy him
yeah.
the land. So I just said, and it's not something I put on paper. It's not something that I sat down and talked to my confidence about. I just, it hit me. I knew it was right. And I just, Dad, I'll buy it from you for that $1 million that you want. And that was it. And all of a sudden I bought the ranch, and now I'm in the cattle business. Now I've got to figure out what to do with the ranch, which created all these creative ideas. And we'll talk about that sometime. So you
Yeah,
better
for
know,
sure.
what we're doing with that. It's been a wonderful thing. And then I remember a specific thought I had in connection with that. I've been rodeoing for a number of years. I had my best friend rodeoing. His name is Joe Willoughby. He's from Australia, Western Australia, and he's just he's a really cool guy. And we've been like, we never had an argument in our entire. I've known him for whatever 20 years, and we just like, I've always got along well.
Pure
And I
love.
remember thinking, because every weekend I'd be off rodeoing somewhere, right? Going to riding broncs. And Joe and I, and there's another friend, Barry, and Jake King, and Justin Arnold. We had this little group. We were kind of like the wolf pack. And we had this great energy in our car. We all were there to win. We weren't there to mess around. And we had a period of, I don't know, probably 5 years where we left every rodeo with a bunch of checks. We just had it going on in our car.
And belt buckles.
Yeah, and just we won, and we took turns winning the championship. Anyway, the circuit championship. So I had this thought right after I bought the ranch, this quick verbal commitment that I made to my dad, just like on the spot.
Yeah.
And I thought, how cool would it be? Because I enjoy being with my rodeo friends so much on the weekends. What if I hired one of them and had them help me build this ranch? Then we'd be together all the time doing this stuff. How fun would that be? We enjoy the rodeo thing so much.
And you enjoy each other.
So I called Joe. Said, Joe, come go to work with me. And he came up and thought about it, and he had other stuff going on, and he went ahead, and he's been there since 2005.
That's amazing.
And every decision I've made, good decision I've made,
Mm-hmm.
has been like that for me. It's something that's come to me that I knew would make my life better
Yeah.
or bigger, or would be an incredible adventure.
Yeah.
And then I have waited out quickly and made a decision quickly, and then just stuck with that decision and made it work.
100%.
And that's a pattern not that I've just learned or gleaned from these
Mm-hmm.
success philosophies.
Yeah. I mean, look, I moved from New York City, and I moved right after 9/11. And, I remember I said, I'm going to move to California. I've always wanted to live out here. And everyone's looking at me and my family saying, you can't move out there. It's way too far. There's no family out there. What are you going to do out there? I said, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to manage the best sports club in the country. And I set my eyes on that. I didn't have a job set up. I had to leave a wonderful managerial position in Manhattan. I was managing personal trainers in Columbus Circle, and I was working for their education department. And when I got out here, I interviewed with them, and they didn't have a managerial position open, but they offered me a position as a personal trainer. And I said to the guy, I said, keep my resume on file. And as soon as a manager leaves, I'm your girl. And 6 months later, he called me up, and I screamed in the phone, oh my God, I didn't even get the job yet. I just got the interview, right? And I just knew that I was going to get that job, even though there was a ton of competition, even though I was only in my early 20s, even though I didn't have a lot of managerial experience. In my mind, I know I can be great. So I just decided that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's cool, Jen. And something that you can glean from just that story that
Mm-hmm.
you just told is that we've talked about, we had this whole discussion on faith, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
there's this, most of us believe in God, but whatever you believe in, God or, infinite intelligence,
Yes,
whatever,
whatever you want to
this
call it.
creative power, whatever's bigger than us, right?
Yeah.
To tap into that, right? We have to, in order for us to kind of understand this power or God, how much he or it loves us and
Mm-hmm.
wants us to succeed, right? It's kind of like our kids. When they come to us and they want something really bad, they've made a decision, and we can tell they've made a real decision, then we put all our effort into backing them, right? But if
Right.
it's kind of like, well, I think I might want to do this,
Yeah.
then how much can we pour ourselves into supporting our kids if they haven't made a real commitment to it, right? But if they've made
Yeah.
a definite decision, then we're all in as parents in general, right? That's the way it
Right.
works. Well, how about relating that to the way God feels or the way infinite intelligence or your higher power feels? Same deal, right? Once you make a definite decision and that person or entity or thing that loves us, that wants us to grow, that sent us here to be what we can be, then that person can like totally support and start helping us make it happen,
That's
right?
right.
But we got to make that definite decision first. And if we fail to make decisions, that support can never really be there in the same way. Make sense?
The best. That's a great way of putting it.
Um, let's see. And I just want to also reiterate that the big separator between us and every other species of living thing on this earth is our ability to make decisions and chart new courses, right? We are the only animal, so to speak, that isn't governed by instinct. We choose our instinct, and our instinct is created by the decisions that we choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can and then it becomes instinctual once we stay hooked to that decision for a certain period of time. Then our whole being compels us towards that, just like an instinctual impulse of an animal that's already pre-programmed. But we come to this earth not pre-programmed. We get to program ourselves through decisions that we make.
Mm-hmm.
So if we haven't made decisions and what a relationship needs to look like, if we don't have one that we love right now, right, in our life,
Mm-hmm.
or what vocational aspiration would really fill us with juice and make us excited to get up and stay up late, right? Or if it happens to be in a sport or some of all of these things, write them down. What would make you happy right now? Because what's right for you is what would make you happy. You are born to be happy.
You were born to be happy. And you know what? Don't let anybody hinder that ability to be happy. I know a lot of people have family members that bring them down. Some friends bring them down. Some bosses bring people down. So they just have to really step outside of it. It's asking people a lot.
Yep.
Because I mean, for you and I, like I keep saying, it's a no-brainer for us. But these other people deserve that same level of happiness that we keep talking
Yes.
about.
Yes. So we will be included in your support system, all of you that are viewers or listeners.
Yeah.
We want to help you. We want your
Mm-hmm.
input. We'll respond. We will do these vodcasts based on what you're telling us you need to get more insight in. We just want to
Mm-hmm.
be a positive part of your team and helping you get to whatever your next level is. But learning how to make and keep the decisions that you make is paramount to everything. Otherwise, we just drift and the lack of making decisions or procrastination as a habit steals our life from us. And
Mm-hmm.
there is sense of urgency because we all have only so much of it. So let's make quality decisions and be happier and be more empowered.
I love that. This has been Fit Because, hosted by Jennifer Zerling.
And George Veter. Be sure to follow us on social media at Fit Because Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And for past episodes, be sure to visit our website at fitbecause.com.
Also, please subscribe to our show on iTunes and be sure to rate and comment. You may always request topics for our subsequent episodes.
And if you love this episode, please share it with someone you love so that we can continue spreading our mission to help people be fit.
Until next time, take care of yourself and know that your future is
Fit because.